I'm Raymond Arroyo in for Laura Ingraham, and this is a special edition of the Ingraham Angle. Trump takes on the left from Washington tonight. President Trump declaring a national emergency on the border in an effort to get his border wall built. Mercedes Schlapp, assistant to the president, is live here in moments to react. We also have an interview with actor and military advocate Gary Sinise. You don't want to miss that. Plus, from blackface scandals to their own diminished sex lives, some liberals are blaming almost everything on President Trump. We'll debate it, but first.
I'm going to be signing a national emergency, and it's been signed many times before. It's been signed by other presidents. From 1977 or so, it gave the presidents the power. We're talking about an invasion of our country with drugs, with human traffickers, with all types of criminals and gangs. We really want to do is simple. It's not like it's complicated. It's very simple. Look, I expect to be sued. I shouldn't be sued. I could do the wall over a longer period of time. I didn't need to do this.
Much has been made of the president's decision to declare a national border emergency, and for good reason. But there's something potentially more important that's being lost in this debate, like what's actually in that bill he signed today. Here are just a few provisions of the funding bill that demand scrutiny. The $1.375 billion for wall funding is even less than what the Dems offered before the shutdown, which was $1.6 billion. And remember, the president dropped his asking price from $25 billion over a decade to just $5 billion ahead of the shutdown. But the new money is restricted, Nancy Pelosi's smart, to funding only 55 miles of fencing. The bill stipulates fencing only, and that can only be constructed in the Rio Grande Valley sector. Then there's this language in Section 232A of the bill. It gives border area mayors veto power over the type of border barrier that can be built in their cities. They have to agree with the design of the fencing, or no funds can be spent. And third, and perhaps most troubling of all, is that the bill offers a form of amnesty, giving deportation immunity to any sponsor or potential sponsor of an unaccompanied alien child. If you're already here illegally, why don't you just tell the kids to come join you in America? It's protected now. It should be noted the president has not given up his fight to secure money. Trump has targeted around $8 billion for border wall construction he says he can tap into. But can he actually access that money without restraints? For reaction, we're joined by Mercedes Schlapp, assistant to the president. Mercy, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, let's start with this. 55 miles of fencing is all that the bill, that $1.3 billion, would allow to be constructed, but it has to be only bollard fencing, and public lands are off limits. And then you got to go to the mayors of a city to build there. Can the president actually use this money to build walls? Some are saying not even fencing is going to go up.
Well, it will go up because actually he's been talking with these contractors. They are moving to start building fencing immediately. They're obligating these funds as we speak. I think it's really important to note that with the 2018 funding, there were so many restrictions to that border wall funding in terms of where they could build, how they could build, et cetera. There's actually less restrictions when it comes to this money. So, for instance, in terms of public lands, there might be certain areas that we may not be able to build with that specific $1.3 billion, but they're allowing the Custom Border Patrol agents to prioritize in the areas where there's vulnerability. And that's a big change from the 2018 funding. With that being said, with these other pockets of money.
Okay, but you're saying you've got $8 billion worth of other monies that you can access from drug blockades.
That's correct.
You have returns from the Treasury, forfeitures. Here's my question, though. That $8 billion, is he free to spend that however he likes, or is he bound by these limitations that are already in the bill?
There is no restrictions to those pots of money. That includes the Treasury forfeiture fund. That includes the money that comes from the counter drugs activities, which is being reprogrammed from Department of Defense. And so that's the money that's not going to be restricted where it can be built. And again, they're looking to obligate these funds. The president met today with the U.S. Army of Engineers. And again, when you look at the design of the wall, the bollards, the steel slats, Those are effective designs for ensuring that we can reduce illegal border crossings.
What about what we heard earlier about this protected status for sponsors or potential sponsors of children? Won't this incentivize moving children, recycling them into the country and out so they get these family units to come together, and then everybody gets in with essentially this anchor unaccompanied minor? I
know there was a lot of concern with this provision, and even the president talked about this as well. The key here is this has to deal with sharing HHS information. So HHS, it was a memorandum of understanding that HHS would share the information with Department of Homeland Security. Department of Homeland Security is going to find other ways to get this information from these sponsors. And if that means that these sponsors have to give this information to Department of Homeland Security, which I doubt if they're illegal aliens, they're going to want to do that, they're not going to be able to get an unaccompanied minor.
Okay. There is a lot of Sturmendrang out there today, Mercedes, throughout the media, voices insisting that there's
no emergency. It's a fake, and everybody knows that, and it's all about politics. Any other emergencies have been declared have true roots in national security and a real threat to the country.
This is a short-term political gain. It is a pathetic display of feckless leadership. I mean, how ridiculous is that? You can't even do feckless leadership well.
Why are they wrong?
Well, they're never Trumpers, number one. Number two, you have these Democrats as well that call this a manufactured crisis, which absolutely means that these are people in denial. You talk to the Border Patrol agents down at the border. You talk to those families who's lost loved ones because of illegal aliens who are here in this country who have killed a family member. There is a crisis. There are smugglers taking advantage of vulnerable families. There are criminals, drug cartels, abusing our immigration laws, and the Democrats refuse to accept that reality. I spoke to Hispanic pastors just a few weeks ago who told me that some of their churches they've received death threats because of the drug cartels. They have seen these human traffickers. We've seen our Border Patrol agents today were talking about how they were chasing a truck that was filled with marijuana, and the truck it was going between the ports of entry. Remember?
We're going to talk about that.
Exactly.
We have a former drug enforcement official coming on to talk about the real threat.
Coming through, and they stop them. So yes, not only are men and women of the Border Patrol, they're sacrificing their lives every day, but the mere fact that mass immigration flows continuously are coming from Central America, coming towards the United States, is why we have a real crisis, and why as a nation we have to uphold the law, we have to secure our border, and we need to ensure the safety of the American people.
The president at one point today said something, I want to share this with you, get your reaction, that I think captured his disgust with Speaker Ryan and Leader McConnell. Watch.
People that should have stepped up did not step up, but we're stepping up now. I will tell you, I'm very disappointed at certain people, particular one, for not having pushed this faster.
Are you referring to Speaker Ryan, sir?
Who?
Speaker Ryan?
Let's not talk about it.
How much does the president blame these Republicans who for 2 years had opportunity to fund this wall? They didn't do it.
Well, the president was definitely disappointed with Speaker Ryan. They had talked about that after the president would sign the humongous omnibus, which did provide funding for the military, that they would work on getting the wall funding by the end of the year. That did not happen. That was a big disappointment. We wanted to have the ability to get that passed in the House and then in the Senate. Look, Senator Mitch McConnell has been supportive of this president, especially now during the national emergency, and has held his ground in support of the president. But it's been a tough couple of years, and now that we have the Democrats in power who only believe in open borders and believe in abolishing ICE, it's a tougher negotiation.
It's a failure on the part of the Republicans. But Ryan and McConnell had the instruments. The American people gave it to them, and I can't help but think.
Remember, you have moderate Republicans in the Senate that have little appetite to get some of this.
Nancy Pelosi knows how to control her caucus.
There is no question.
Paul Ryan should have learned to control his.
Yes.
I mean, you got to threaten. I'm going to remove you off that committee. You're not going to get that money for your reelection. That's how you keep people in line. I covered Capitol for 20 years. You know this.
Well, come on. Speaker Pelosi can barely control AOC, so she's having her own difficulties right now.
Let me tell you, look, I can guarantee you Pelosi will bring her to heel. You watch. Border Patrol wants expanded walls, as do victims of illegal alien violence. The president highlighted some of these angel families today. Watch this. He dramatically underscored. their plight.
It's so sad. Stand up just for a second. Show how beautiful your girl was. Thank you. I have such respect for these people. Angel moms, angel dads, angel families.
Some people said in the media today that he's capitalizing on this, that this is insignificant when you look at the crime in the United States and along the border. You'd say what?
These are the real stories of the Americans impacted by the awful realities of illegal immigration. Their voices deserve to be heard. Democrats have shut them out. The president is standing with these angel families. I was there with the president during the meeting with them, and it was a very emotional and strong moment for the president. And we love these families that have spoken out about their loved ones and the crimes that have impacted their lives.
This is the real toll. Mercedes Schlapp, as always, thank you for being here.
Great to see you.
We'll talk again soon. Joining me now, Congressman Matt Gaetz, who sits on the House Budget, Armed Services, and Judiciary Committees, and Alan Orr, Vice President of the American Immigration Lawyers Association. Congressman, your Democratic colleagues on the House Judiciary Committee just sent a letter to the president tonight announcing an immediate investigation about this executive action he announced today, and they're initiating a resolution in the House to nullify the national emergency. Has the president gone too far?
He has, and I hope the Democrats on the Judiciary Committee will look at the facts of what's going on the border. I think there are 3 national emergencies happening. The first is humanitarian. Just in the month of December, 20,000 children were smuggled across the border. That is a terrible humanitarian crisis. There's also a crime epidemic. ICE had to go and arrest 30,000 sex predators who had come across the border illegally and then committed sex crimes against our citizens. And then, of course, there's a drug crisis. We just seized enough fentanyl on the border to kill 115 million Americans. That's more than a third of the country. So if drugs coming into the country that could kill a third of the country is not a national emergency, like, how much does it have to be? Does it have to be something that'll kill 200 million Americans, 300 million, all of us? I mean, to me, it's a real emergency, and it's probably 3 of them.
I want to play you both Nancy Pelosi's reaction to this emergency declaration. Watch.
The president is doing an end run about Congress, about the power of the purse. You've heard me say over and over again, Article 1, the legislative branch, the power of the purse, the power to declare war, many other powers listed in the Constitution, and, of course, the responsibility to have oversight. So the president is doing an end run around that.
Alan Orr, you believe the president lacks the standing, the legal standing, to declare a national emergency.
Absolutely.
Why do you believe that? Many of his
Absolutely.
predecessors have done it.
Absolutely. It's not about what the predecessors have done. It's about what this president is doing. And it's different than what the predecessors have done, because in all other cases before, the predecessors did not reallocate money from Congress for emergencies that just don't exist. So when we talk about all of these numbers and increases at the border in crime, then it really isn't consistent with the evidence and the receipts that we have from Senator Nelson, which says that family and children are presenting themselves for asylum, which is a legal form of entry to this country, which a wall does not prevent. And when we claim that we're having a drug problem, when we actually caught that big drug bus coming into the country at a port of entry, then that's not really a problem. It seems like it's working, and a wall really isn't going to solve that problem either. So when we start looking for addressing issues, we should look for overspending and then taking money away from our military forces to address problems that don't exist.
Congressman Gaetz, I want your reaction.
Yeah.
Does the president lack legal standing here, even though Obama, Ford, Carter, everybody's declared national emergencies?
Well, I'm an Article 1 guy, but the Congress did authorize and appropriate funds to stop critical drug trafficking corridors. One of the Title 10 authorities under Section 284 that the president's going to use is precisely the type of money that we would intend for this purpose. Also, the military construction money is precisely intended to aid in the protection of the country. This is an entirely appropriate use for those funds. But, like, to say that because we found enough fentanyl to kill 115 million Americans, everything's fine, that's like saying because Chicago is the murder capital of the United States and we catch a bunch of people committing murder, that we shouldn't worry about murder there anymore.
Absolutely not saying that at all.
It's somewhat of a fallacy.
I'm not saying that at all. And actually, he declared the emergency under the War Act, not under the Drug Act. It was actually 10 U.S.C. 60-21, which was about war, and so therefore it's a little bit different than what you're claiming it to be.
But
and
those are
therefore
for the military construction dollars.
the point of the matter is that if you look at Cato on the left and you look at institutions like the American Immigration Council on the right, they all agree that the problems that you claim exist do not exist with receipts and studies, and not just saying this is how they feel about it. This is the research that was done.
So you are claiming there is no national emergency or crisis at the border at all?
Yeah, I don't know what that means. Saying that, what do you mean by there's an emergency, there's a crisis? It means that we should be addressing the people who are applying for asylum in the lawful manner.
No,
so therefore, what I'm saying is there's no legal emergency that requires an $8 trillion wall. That is what I'm saying to you.
Congressman, I'm going to let you react to that. I mean, is there a crisis at the border, and how would you characterize it? Congressman Gage.
One, it's an $8 billion wall, not an $8 trillion wall. Two, Senator Nelson is no longer in the Senate. He was beat by Rick Scott. And three, the fact that you've got all these people that are using our porous border to bring crime into the country, these stats are real. There were 30,000 people that ICE had to go and detain who committed sex crimes. You think about how many more thousands of victims that were impacted by that. And the point is, these are entirely preventable crimes. There's a lot of crime that goes on in our country that we can't prevent, but if we have a physical barrier at the border where the cartels and traffickers can't bring people here illegally, we can 100% stop those crimes.
Okay,
that's
gentlemen,
a fallacy
I'm going to leave
of causation that just doesn't present itself to be true, because we know the people who've been deported come back into the country via airport or via boat.
Well, that's because there's no
We're going
wall.
to get into all of this, gentlemen. We're going to have to leave it there. A wonderful debate. We'll have more time for it. Now I want to get to the facts on the ground at the border. The president has long maintained Democrats want open borders, a charge the New York Times and others have rejected. In December, the Times wrote, false. Mr. Trump has long charged that Democrats want open borders. Democrats do not want open borders, the Times says, evidenced in part by border security legislation that Democrats have supported. But what about the comments from leading Democrats this week? Listen.
You know, if you could, would you take the wall down now? Here.
Yes.
Like you have a wall.
Absolutely.
Knock it down.
I'd take the wall down.
And do you think if there's a referendum here in this city, that would pass?
I do.
What about a proposal from Beto O'Rourke to actually remove some of the existing wall? He was talking about El Paso, but the idea of dismantling some of the wall, good idea, bad idea?
Well, I could look at it and see which part he means and why, and if it makes sense, I could support it.
So they want the walls to come down. How much harm would open borders actually portend for our country? And is there indeed a crisis on the border? For answers, former Drug Enforcement Administration agent Derek Maltz. Derek, border agents, ICE agents I spoke to in El Paso just this past week, they insisted they need an expanded border wall on that border. Here's the question. If those walls came down in places like El Paso, where Beto O'Rourke is suggesting, what would be the impact?
Look at the murders in Juarez, right across the border of El Paso. That's why there's thousands of people being murdered in El Paso. But let's look at it even further. Raymond, look at what happened over the weekend. We had a meth lab in Atlanta, 400 pounds of meth. We haven't seen a lab like that since 2000. We had all these Mexican illegal aliens. Everyone but one was illegal. And they were producing meth. By the way, 1 pound of meth will create 5 pounds of toxic waste. That's 2,000 pounds of toxic waste.
Where are the environmentalists
in Atlanta
now?
Right now, yeah, exactly. The other thing is, too, in North Carolina, just this week, there was 6 people arrested, all illegals for the Jalisco cartel. Jalisco is one of the most violent cartels in the world. So to have no border security is a national crisis. We want to keep the drugs and thugs out of the country. Look what happened on the New York City subway. The poor guy, 20-year-old, yeah, he's a gangster, shot in the head on video. And look at the guy's background. He had 12 prior arrests. He was out on $2,500 bail. And you know what was crazy, Raymond? The guy was beating somebody with a pipe.
Yeah, I saw.
That's what happened.
Unbelievable.
He was beating someone with a pipe.
Now, there are those today who are insisting the drugs are not coming through those open areas of the border, but elsewhere. Watch.
Sure, we do know there are drugs that are coming as well across the border in between ports of entry, but it's DEA, it's Customs and Border Statistics that tell us otherwise.
Drugs don't come in through the border like the president seems to think that they do.
80 to 90% of the drugs that he identified in his speech are seized at the border, at ports of entry.
Is that true? Is there no threat outside of those ports of entry?
First of all, the statistics are so flawed. We don't know what we're missing. Like, I was talking to a buddy in Arizona. He's a lead law enforcement agent in Arizona, Doug Coleman. He's awesome. Doug Coleman told me today that they seized 400,000 pills, okay, of this Mexican oxy. Go talk to the parents of these high school studs in Phoenix that are dying, these counterfeit pills. So so
we don't know what we're missing.
We don't know what
over
we're missing.
the deserts
so
and in these open
when
areas.
the backpackers are coming in, it's not just marijuana. They have liquid meth, bringing it to these labs like the one in Atlanta. So it's a complete fallacy. We want one option for everyone to come in, the port of entry. Then we put the screening and the technology at those port of entries.
Bottom line, you were there for years. You were in charge of stopping drugs coming into this country. Is there a crisis on our border, yes or no?
There's a tremendous crisis, and it's not just, ask the families, 72,000 people have died. But more importantly, it's kids that don't know what they're taking. It's like popping a pill at a party. You think it's kind of going to be cool, and you wake up, and you don't wake up. Your parents are finding you dead. So the problem is, there's no quality control. And by the way, Raymond, the synthetic compounds are coming from China. So we have China, too, working with the Mexican cartels.
To move it into the country.
That's a dangerous combination for America's national security.
We'll leave it there. Derek, thank you for your insight. Breaking new developments in the alleged MAGA attack on Empire actor Jussie Smollett. But is his blame Trump narrative crumbling? An important update after this. Stay with us.
Hollywood star who's black and gay, and now the victim of a heinous crime.
Smollett confirmed to CNN that he was attacked while walking in downtown Chicago. He said his attackers hurled racial and homophobic slurs at him.
During a follow-up interview, police say Smollett told them something new, that during the attack, the offenders uttered, "This is MAGA country."
This is all fresh reaction that's been going on in just the last few hours after the word of this crime has started to spread out there.
And this is America in 2019.
Welcome back to this special edition of the Ingraham Angle. Trump takes on the left. Now, the Jussie Smollett story of being targeted in a political and homophobic attack became the perfect encapsulation of a narrative that's gained momentum, mainly that this is what Trump's America looks like and what happens when Trump's MAGA-hatted supporters take to the streets and are emboldened. But several new developments today contradict the Empire actor's claims. Remember what Smollett charged.
I could only go off of their words. I mean, who says Empire, this MAGA country, ties a noose around your neck and pours bleach on you? And this is just a friendly fight?
Just into Fox News, this is breaking. Chicago police say they released 2 Nigerian brothers arrested earlier this week without charges. Joining me now, Horace Cooper, co-chairman of Project 21, and Leo Terrell, a civil rights attorney. Smollett refuses to release his phone records. He claims he was talking to his manager when this attack went down, and his manager heard those racial slurs in the MAGA business. Is this story falling apart, Horace, or does the release of these 2 Nigerians suggest that maybe he's got something?
This story is not adding up in any way. Where it occurred, when it occurred, none of that makes sense, how he reacted. But what's most important here is how fast the media decided that this needed to be national news. I'm still waiting for the Alec Baldwin trial to take place where he made homophobic attacks, but we haven't been getting hour-to-hour or minute-to-minute coverage of that.
Leo, I want you to react to this bite from Smollett during his interview with Robin Roberts. Listen.
Why do you think you were targeted? I can just assume, I mean, I come really, really hard against 45. I come really, really hard against his administration. And I don't hold my tongue.
Leo, they can't find any video evidence to substantiate this attack. Those 2 Nigerian men that they arrested, those are the only 2 they found on video, and there might be a connection between them and Smollett. Did Smollett there slander the president and his supporters with that assertion?
Well, let me answer your question, Raymond. No, he didn't slander. That's his opinion. But I'm glad I'm a lawyer because Horace has already rushed to judgment on whether or not Smollett's story is true. He has no personal access to the information. No, let me finish. The police has not concluded its investigation, and Horace has just told the national audience that the case is falling apart. How do you know? In
No, I said this
give me
doesn't
what
add
knowledge you
up.
have.
There are
You
too
just said
many
it. Well, how do you know that?
irregularities.
How do you know that? How do you know
because
that?
I can,
What personal knowledge do
use
you have of the
reason
facts?
and logic.
Oh,
for
I
one
see.
thing, the location of where this
It's called
occurred,
guessing.
how much time it took for the call to take place. My point is, I'm fine with
Raymond,
an
that's called
investigation.
rush to judgment.
I am fine. This is not rush to judgment. I'm fine with an investigation taking place. What I'm not fine with is the media making this a big enough story that we have to get minute by minute coverage.
You're providing.
Leo, in the wake of the Covington boys scandal, where we saw a kid in a MAGA hat who was charged with racism, and now they've been totally cleared and exonerated in an independent investigation this week, and many of the people who attacked them had to apologize. This has the same ring to it with nothing to substantiate it aside from this actor's words. Now, Democratic leaders were quick to condemn the attack. Nancy Pelosi, Kamala Harris came out with tweets. Did they rush to judgment, Horace?
Well, absolutely. This is my point. You let an investigation take place, and then you reach conclusions. This investigation is still ongoing,
Leo,
and there are some troubling aspects about it that need to be further developed. Why won't he give the record so we can see who he was calling to and hear it simultaneously?
Leo, I agree with you that all the facts are not in here yet. They're not.
Thank you.
And I want to read a headline to you.
The injuries are. Go ahead.
I want to read a headline.
The injuries are real.
This is GQ. This is a headline, and I want your reaction. It says, the racist, homophobic attack on Jussie Smollett is far-right America's endgame. A still disputed aspect of the attack on Smollett is a line shouted after his attacker fled the scene, "This is MAGA country." While the veracity isn't confirmed, its sentiment needs no fact check. Is that fair, Leo?
Well, the last sentence is extreme, but let me tell you right now, I think it's clear the last 3 years, 2 years under the Trump administration, this country has been divided based on race, gender, sex, sexual orientation. So it's not surprising that people have done this.
If by division on race, gender, and sex you mean women have earned more, blacks have earned more, Latinos have done better,
Horace. We're talking about
because
assault.
they've done so faster than the rest of the country.
Raymond, I just want to make sure one thing is clear. The injuries by Jussie are real. Those are real physical injuries, Horace.